Como é que é, pessoal? Bem-vindos novamente ao Underground Voice ao vivo. Hoje tenho o prazer de receber Devil, Soul e Soul. Estou aqui com os dois vocalistas. Guys, thank you so much for being here. It's a huge honor to meet you and to receive you there at Underground's Voice. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, definitely.
It's a pleasure. So the new album Loss will be released in April 9, and it's being highly anticipated for the fans and everyone because it's the first album with both of you on vocals at the same time. So it's a new beginning for the band. Even though you already played live together in the last few years, but anyway, it's a new beginning. So how do you feel about this new era and about this new album?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, no, we're really excited about it. It's been just one of those things that clicked straight away. It's been really easy for me and Paul to just get on and sing together. Like I've said to loads of people, we knew each other like in passing, I guess, before we came to the Fragile Hope shows, but instantly we just sort of became like really good friends, best friends even.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's really easy as well. It's just kind of like we just, I don't know, just clicked really quickly. And I've written with other singers before because of my other band, but it's never been as easy as this. This has been like a lot of fun, and kind of all of the years and stuff working up to this point. I think it feels like this is the best we've ever been as a band. And I know that's like quite usual for bands to say when they come up to an album launch, but it does feel that way. It feels like a really positive time for us.
Definitely.
And Empire of Light, the last album was released 9 years ago. It's a lot of time. So did you felt the need of to reinvent yourselves for this comeback on the sound, on the lineup, on and your future goals also?
I don't think we felt the need to reimagine our sound, but I think we definitely felt the need, like the pressure that it had to be worth doing it. If you see what I mean, it had to be good. It had to be as good as what we've done in the past. And if it couldn't be, then it was sort of a bit of a redundant process, I guess. So yeah, we definitely felt the process, the pressure that it had to be decent.
I think it's we spent quite a while writing it. At the beginning, I don't think if we hadn't had like the guitar parts and the musical sort of start that we did have with this album, I don't think we would have seen it through, because doing an EP just wouldn't have cut it, because we needed to do an album. It'd been so long, it needed to be a sizable task. So I think if we hadn't started off by maybe writing a couple of really decent tracks, and maybe it wouldn't have happened. In terms of changing the sound, I don't feel like we have really that much. I think it's kind of naturally become what it has.
Yes, and I think we kind of know what kind of corners that we can go to with the band. So I suppose what we did do with this record is that we did kind of explore a lot of what we've done in the past, as well as some new stuff. What it does mean is that all the tracks do kind of very distinctly have their own sound and place. They're not really treading on each other at all, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
Yeah, you already released 3 singles for Loss. Beyond Reach is more soft and melodic. The Narcissist is really heavy and groovy, and then Burn is kind of a mix of these two faces. So the impression I had about these songs, it was like if these songs are so different between them, that's because the album will sound like that also. So I listened the album for the first time on this weekend, and it's exactly that. So that's why you guys choose these songs in particular for being the singles and video clips also.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, I was just going to say, like, yeah, it's kind of like the first two were picked specifically by the label to make sure that we approached the campaign in the right manner, like introduce ourselves back to the fans, introduce ourselves to the Nuclear Blast fans, and then bring in something that was kind of more about some of the songs that we decided that we wanted to put forward, because they sort of made us quite excited about this is kind of a little bit new plus the other sounds that we've already got on the record.
Yeah, it's quite interesting in that they're not. We had a lot of conversations about what songs we wanted to put out first, and that actually was all the tracks came up, and that's the problem is that basically every single track had its name mentioned at some point, and it's funny. It's not necessarily from our hearts what we necessarily wanted to do, but it would have been. It's definitely they're the songs that made the most sense in terms of showing breadth and also being kind of more kind of single-esque songs which work in isolation, like because they're quite sort of standalone tracks, and they're also some of probably definitely the first two are probably the most extreme ends of the spectrum on the record, so it's kind of good to show that in some respects, I think. And but what it does mean is that we put out 3 songs that we really love, and there's actually songs on there which we love even more. So it's kind of it should, I hope, mean that anyone who's listened to them and like them, they should be able to go into the album and it'd be like, well, fuck, this wasn't even the best stuff. This was like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that 100%. I've sort of said lines of Whisper, and these 3 singles, we love them still, but for me, they weren't my favourite. So there's still
Burdened was the one which came up.
Yeah,
that was like
Burden was.
Picked.
Yeah, Burden was definitely one of the ones that I kind of wanted to pick up, definitely. But like Signal Fire, for example, and Witness Marks, definitely two others that I would have 100% gone for singles if it hadn't been 7-8 minutes long.
It'd been too long, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really a great album. So how's been the
Thank
first reaction for all these singles?
Yeah, it's been really positive. I mean, we've put ourselves into a position where we're with a really heavy label now. Nuclear Blast are fundamentally metal straight through. So we've had our fans have loved it. We've had new fans come on board because we've joined a massive label. We knew we were going to get a little bit of stick from sort of the more very very metal people.
Metal, yeah,
the gatekeepers of metal.
Yeah,
and we've had a little bit from them, but like we knew it was going to be that way because
it's fine.
Us.
And also, you put your music in front of more people. You're not going to please everyone, and I mean, I think there is probably something to say if you please everyone, it's not necessarily good thing. It might be a bit too broad if you're pleasing everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, I find any negative comments I find hilarious because they're just so strangely written.
They're just strange personal attacks on they look at someone and go, I don't like the look of that person. So okay.
You're both really great lead singers, but at the same time you're also different from each other. So how was the composition process of all these new songs? Each one wrote his parts, or it was like a fusion between both visions, ideas, and styles?
Massive fusion. There's parts that I sing that Ed wrote, and there's parts that Ed sings that I wrote, and we wrote a lot of stuff together as well. We tried to play to the strengths that each of us have, and make you'll hear a lot more like the softer verses, etc., where there's a lot of emotion in it, and Ed's doing quite a lot of plays because his voice is so much emotion, and like it comes across way better from him than it does from me. And there's bits that I do that I kind of find my strengths within the way I sing. So in terms of writing, it was really whatever worked for the song. We weren't fighting over parts or clambering over words.
There was never like really any like much discussion over any of that, was there? It was just kind
of none.
Everything just kind of fell into place. Like I remember the first song that we kind of started. We wrote one of the songs. What was it? It was
Witness Marks?
No. Acrimony. Can get the name out of my head then. Yeah. We kind of wrote that in a practice room where we both shown each other a couple of little ideas, but it was literally like pointing at each other, you'll go. And we were just like, and weirdly that it's basically exactly as it was when we sang it at the first practice, and we were just making shit up on the spot. That's the funny thing. But yeah, it was really fun. We were just like pointing back and forth. Oh, we've done it. That's the song.
Paul Kidney left the band last year, but he wasn't replaced by anyone on the band on the samples. Why?
So the stuff with Paul is a bit of a tricky one. So he moved to Australia, and officially we haven't really spoken about any of that. So it's a case of communication has kind of just broken down over time, and we got to a point where we just had to start writing a record because we needed to, we wanted to. I don't think we need to replace him at all in terms of touring or anything, because most of the actual strings and synths and stuff like that were written by Johnny and Rick, our guitarists, anyway. So it hasn't actually affected the sound. And when in terms of playing live, a lot of that we can put to backing tracks, because the samples that were being played were pretty much programmed into a disc and just button pressing to launch them. So it's a funny one, because obviously people said, oh, it's a shame that he's not on the record. They hadn't heard anything, obviously, at that point. But it doesn't affect Devil Soldier Soul at all. Not in terms of our sound, not by long way.
A lot of his parts are guitar layers that were written by Rick and Johnny, really. So it was more of a performance thing, I suppose, live, rather than sort of contribution thing, I suppose.
Yeah, but, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, he's living his life in Australia, and we're all really completely happy for him, really. And as far as we know, he's having a great time. So
yeah, we just haven't spoken for about a year now, and it's not because we don't like each other. It's just because the time difference between Australia and the UK is so big that
living opposites, aren't you?
Yeah, and on WhatsApp and stuff, when we were trying to talk about things, sometimes it just you completely lost communication, and it just dropped off after time. So it reached its natural conclusion without having to really say anything.
You're also releasing some discussion videos in your social media about the album and also about your career and past. Is this a way to keep close to your fans and at the same time keep them updated, since we can have shows and festivals for we don't know how much long?
Yeah, so we spoke to the label about what content we want to do during this period, and our really close friend Finn Pomeroy, who shoots all of our video from tour and takes all of our stills, etc. He was like, "Yeah, let's do this." So we wanted to make sure that in this campaign we had a voice as well as just putting music out, because we can do interviews and we can do sort of press, etc. But in terms of putting our "This Is Us" to all these new fans, I think it was important that we were able to put these videos together, to explain the songs, to explain the history of the band, to explain how we record, all of those bits, because it's something interesting for people new to us and our existing fans to sort of listen.
Absolutely, because we haven't really been particularly in people's sort of sites for a while, I suppose. And it's kind of a nice way to reintroduce ourselves. And we're all really quiet, kind of introverted people, really. So there's a lot of stuff about us that people don't really know, and especially about kind of our past. Unless you've lived kind of through the whole band's career and followed us really closely, there's probably a lot of stuff in there that people just don't know about. So it's quite a nice way, not only to reintroduce ourselves and maybe talk about maybe our sort of 17 years as a band, sort of just introduce ourselves to new people, or whether it was sort of actually put a bit of context. That's weird. Context to sort of old fans who there might be some things that they don't really know about, sort of decision making processes and just sort of behind the scenes things that they wouldn't ever know about, I suppose.
Well, and does this pandemic have any influence on the composition or concept or lyrics or everything in this album?
So it didn't intentionally, no. It did affect us in terms of our recording of the record. Ed and I had finished writing by the point where it kicked in. But it's funny because looking at some of the lyrics now and some of the sort of meanings behind the tracks, they've kind of changed a little bit. Especially even Burden, for example, just some of the lyrics in there, and it's just like, wow, this has actually happened in the last year. It's so strange, but we we didn't really write anything about it. It's just yeah, I can't really put my finger on it. It's just how it's worked out.
Yeah, and it's weird, like sort of the whole concept of loss through the record isn't just about sort of the sort of more straight up sort of grief and actual loss of sort of loved ones. It's also about kind of the sort of loss of sort of mental health and sort of life around that, how you lose your normal self essentially. And it's kind of interesting that everyone has lost their sort of sense of normal life the past year. They lost their sort of just their normal social life. They've lost their kind of just their day to day. Just everything about everyone's life has been sort of lost the past year. So it's kind of interesting that kind of it's weirdly kind of, yeah, like Paul says, it's weirdly kind of sung about without it being directly about that initially. But you know, it's cool how songs can have this kind of evolution of meaning. Like there's songs which I wrote sort of 15 years ago which kind of have moved through into different things later on, and I think weirdly this one's evolving quite quickly.
Yeah.
It's true. And finally, thank you so much for being here once again. It was a huge honor to receive you, to talk to you guys a little bit. So, any last words for the Portuguese fans and Underground's Voice viewers?
Oh, I'd love to play in Portugal. That's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, you know, if we can get out there, if we can play some shows, if we can share a super bock on the beach, just like you know, just meet the people that, over in Portugal that like our music, because we've never been there. But I haven't. Have you ever been there, Ed? With the band? No. So it's, you know, let's do it. Let's get out to say, hope they enjoy the record. It's, you know, we put a lot of our heart and soul into it. Everything we possibly could. We still are at the moment working hard to make it happen. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, and thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Once again, thank you, and please stay safe too.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
See you soon, guys. Thank you.
See ya.
Take it easy.